Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the quarterly data quality process. Today is June 3rd. Today is the start of the data quality. My name is Alexander Fuller. We have quite a bit to get through today, so let's just kind of get started. For housekeeping, everyone is on mute. If you do have questions, please utilize the questions function and go to webinar. I'll try to answer any questions as we're going through this. I do have a dedicated time at the end of this webinar for questions, if time allows. This webinar will be recorded and available on our data quality help desk articles. So if you want to review that after this, it should be available no later than noon tomorrow at the very latest. Okay, so today we're going to go over the context of data quality, missing values, child-only entries, utilization, timeliness, who participates, report details, an overview of this quarter's data quality process, the submission, data quality timelines, accessing and reviewing the report. I'm going to share my screen to kind of do a live demo of that. Troubleshooting the data quality report, and then also resources and support. So for context, the Chicago Continuum of Care, the COC, utilizes data-informed approaches to coordinate services and resources in an effort to end homelessness. The Homeless Management Information System, HMIS, data quality is an important factor to measure efforts to end or prevent homelessness. The COC relies on the work of all providers of all funding types to enter accurate, complete, and timely data to ensure we have the information we need to make informed decisions as a community. So due to this importance on data, in order to maintain data quality, providers in HMIS are expected to participate in a quarterly data quality process that addresses data in the following 4 areas. One is missing values and data issues, child-only entries, bed utilization, and timeliness. So the first piece that we're going to go over is missing values and data issues. This is going to be found on the data quality report and business objects on the summary tab. So no more than 5% of clients enrolled in the project can have missing or be missing any data elements, including data not collected answers. So in this example of the table that you're going to see on the summary page, the data elements that we're looking at are name, social security number, date of birth, race and ethnicity, gender, veteran status, prior living situation, length of stay in previous place, relationship to head of household, client location, domestic violence, disability at entry and exit, income at entry and exit, non-cash benefit at entry and exit, insurance at entry and exit, and destination. So when you're reviewing this on the summary page, it's important to be mindful of the column just to the right of those data elements, which is the required for column. So this is going to let you know what clients are being measured by these data elements. So if we look at name, social security number, all clients are required to have those completed. So any errors in those is going to be representative of all the clients enrolled in your project, versus veteran status where it's only for adults. So if you have a child that's missing a veteran status and you have an error on the summary page, that's not going to be related to the child having a missing value. There's an adult in your data that has that missing value. So be mindful of the required for, just so you know who's being measured by that data element. Name, social security number, and date of birth data elements also include client doesn't know and client prefers not to answer as errors. So just for the entire report, any answer of data not collected is going to be flagged as an error. For name, social security number, and date of birth, if they have client doesn't know or client prefers not to answer, that's also going to be counted as an error. One thing that I do want to mention is about the social security number. So social security number is a required field. So if you have a client that does not have a social security number and you put data not collected, it will show as an error on the data quality report. And that is the most accurate way to represent that data. So there's nothing that you can put that'll get around the error, but just ensure that the clients that do have client or data not collected or client prefers not to answer are only reserved for the clients that truly don't have a social security number. This is also how HUD views clients who don't have a social security number as well. Are there any questions about missing values before we continue? Did the audio, so we do have two questions. Did the audio disappear or is it just me? So hopefully everyone can hear me. If you aren't able to hear me, please let me know. But Gary, you might want to leave the webinar and come back if you aren't able to hear the audio. So we do have another question. Clients with no social, what should we do again? So if your client doesn't have a social security number, you would have to put data not collected, or client doesn't know, or client prefers not to answer. More than likely, it'd be data not collected. I would think would be the most appropriate. But there's no way to get around not having a social security number, even if the client doesn't have one. So based on how HUD views this, we're doing it the exact same way. So based on their guidance, it should be represented as missing data. Okay. So one thing that I did want to mention, this kind of been around for at least 2 data quality processes already, but both the primary race and the ethnicity fields were retired and replaced during the 2024 data standard changes. The race field located in the summary tab and the details tab have been updated and will now be pulled from the new race and ethnicity field. So this has again been kind of consistent for the last 2 data qualities, but in my example here, we do have both columns, the race and ethnicity and the ethnicity column. You will still see that in the details tab of the report. That's only there for historic purposes. We are looking into removing that at some point. But when you run your report, you are going to see retired for the entire column of ethnicity for the clients that are pulling into the report. So if you see that, it's not an error. It's not counting towards your data anyway. The same as in the summary tab, you are going to see that ethnicity row, but it's always going to be 0%. So no matter what any historic answer for that question might have been, you're not going to see it in the details tab, and it's going to be represented as retired. And it's also in the summary tab, not going to count towards any of the data quality error percentages. So child-only entries, there must be 0 child-only entries for your project. A child-only entry is flagged when a client is under the age of 18 and is enrolled in a project without being connected to a parent or guardian. That's the case in the majority of projects in our continuum. There are a handful of projects that are funded to serve child, or are funded to serve children or child only enrollments. So if those projects do have child only entries and they're funded to do so or to work with youth, just let us know. We can account for that on our end. But there's usually 2 reasons for clients showing up in the child only entries tab outside of the project serving that population. Is that the child was entered separately from their parent or guardian, or the child's or the client's date of birth is missing. So for the first example where the child is separate from the parent or guardian. This usually happens if a household is already enrolled and a child is joining a household at a later date or joining the household and enrollment at a later date. In some cases, the child is opened up in a brand new enrollment versus being connected to the already existing enrollment. That will cause the child only entry since the child would appear that they're by themselves. The second would be client's date of birth is missing. And this will actually show up in two places. So if a client's date of birth is missing, they're going to show up in as an error for date of birth in the data elements that we just looked at, as well as the child only entries. So no matter how old the client is, if the date of birth is missing, they're going to show up under child only entries. Okay, so utilization, bed unit utilization must be within the following ranges. So for emergency shelters, which include emergency shelters night by night and emergency shelters entry and exits, as well as transitional housing, is 80% to 105%. So as long as your utilization is between that percent or the percentages, your project is in compliance. For safe haven, it's 85% to 105%. And for permanent supportive housing, the minimum is 85%. So there's no cap on how high that percentage could be for permanent supportive housing. I would say that if you have a percentage that's over, let's say 130, I will review your inventory just to ensure that your inventory is set up accurately. So the utilization looks at how many clients were enrolled in your project on February 15th, 2024, as compared to how many bids and units are indicated in your bid and unit inventory sheet. So the point in time date for this iteration of data quality is February 15th, 2024. For permanent supportive housing projects, that does mean that clients being counted in utilization must have a housing movement date that's prior to or on the point in time date February 15th, and that's after the client enrolled or on the date that the client enrolled in the project. So if a project is over or underutilizing their bid list, but it's in compliance for their unit list, then the project will still be in compliance. The opposite situation would also be counted as being in compliance. So as long as either bid or unit utilization is in compliance, the project as a whole will be in compliance for utilization. So I have a chart here or an example of what the utilization table looks like on the summary page. It's broken into two sections. One is bed utilization, one is unit utilization. And again, only one has to be in compliance for the entire utilization to be in compliance. The way that the bed inventory utilization is calculated is based on the individual clients and the total number of beds available for the project. So if your project has 10 single beds and 10 family beds, the total bed inventory that you're going to see here is going to be 20 beds versus the clients enrolled. So that's going to be unique clients. So you can count individual client ID numbers. And then if permanent supportive housing, individual client ID numbers that also have a housing movement date within the point in time date, that's going to make up your bed total. For the unit inventory or the unit utilization, again, the unit inventory works the same way. So if you have 10 units for singles, 10 units for families, then it's going to give you 20 as the cumulative total. And the number of households enrolled. So the difference is that the bed utilization is looking at individual clients. The unit utilization is looking at the number of households. And you can double check the households and the details tab by counting the unique group ID numbers. So it's going to be the first column, and the details tab is the group ID numbers. And again, within range of the housing movement date for supportive or permanent supportive housing. Is there any questions about utilization or anything else we've covered so far? Okay. Okay, so we do have a question about the recap on social security number. So let's kind of jump back to that slide about social security number. So for social security number, everyone is required to have a social security number. If your client does not have a social security number, then the most appropriate thing to put is data not collected. It will cause an error in the report, but that's the most accurate way to reflect that data. And it's the same as the way that HUD would view clients without a social security number. Um, that's based on their guidance on how to document that. Okay, so we do have another question about utilization. So utilization rate is low in our new project. What to do and how would this affect us? So if you have a new project that just joined and your clients don't match your available inventory just yet, just due to time, then that's fine. Then I mean it is accurate. So the utilization that pulls in, although it's low and it's not in compliance, the reason for it not being in compliance is accurate. So there's nothing that you can do or there's nothing that you should do to make your utilization within rate. At this time, that's the most accurate information for your project. Okay, so we do have another question. Similar to ethnicity errors not counting against agencies, will all Chicago consider social security numbers not counting against agencies? So I think there is going to be, or there should probably be a change to how social security numbers is reflected in data quality. I don't think it would be to the point of excluding social security numbers as we do ethnicity. I think the criteria for social security numbers might change a little bit. But in terms of how social security numbers are being counted for clients that don't have a social security number, um, if your project is funded by HUD and you're submitting APRs or CAPER reports to HUD, um, they're gonna view it the exact same way as missing data. So how we're interpreting or how we're displaying social security number for this data quality process is the exact same way that HUD is looking at social security number data for clients that don't have a social security number. Okay, so there is a utilization change that was made since the last iteration. In the utilization table of data quality, the utilization percentage was previously being understated due to the housing movement dates being on the same day as the enrollment and not included due to the time. This has been corrected in this quarter's process. So previously, if a client enrolled at 5 p.m. and they got a housing moving date on the same day, by default, that housing moving date had a time attached to it at 12 a.m., which would look like it's before the client enrolled in the project. There's no need to make any adjustments to the time anymore, just because that's accounted for now in this report. So as long as the client is enrolled on the same day as the housing movement date, they're going to be counted in utilization. We did also add a housing moving day column to the details tab. It's the second to the last column of the report, right next to destination at exit. So you're able to see the clients being counted in utilization a little bit easier. This column is only going to display housing movement dates that are being counted towards utilization. If for whatever reason the housing movement date is out of range, they are going to display as date out of range in the in the um in the report. So again, permanent supportive housing clients must have a housing movement date added that is after or on the entry date. and the housing movement date before the entry or after the set point in time date will not be included in the utilization table. So an example would be if a client enrolled in your project February, or let's say, yeah, February 1st, and they didn't get housed until February 16th, with the point in time date being February 15th, the client wouldn't be counted in utilization just because they weren't housed as of February 15th. So even though they're in range of the report, they're not in range of the point in time date. So timeliness. Timeliness is tracked through an automated report created by AllChicago. This timeliness report will track the timeliness at entry, exit, at housing movement date, and for shelter services. Timeliness measures the time it takes to create an element in HMIS. This measure applies even if the entry date is backdated. For instance, if a client originally came into a project on April 1st, 2024, but they were not entered into the project in HMIS until April 15th, the information will be considered out of compliance as it took 14 days to indicate that the client was enrolled in the project. Timeliness data cannot be corrected, unfortunately. But one thing too that I want to mention is that although timeliness cannot be corrected, you shouldn't use timeliness as a reason not to update data or not to ensure that data is accurate. So even if you find out information about a client that that should have been gathered when they enrolled in the project, if you need to go back and make any corrections, it's better to make those corrections so the information is available in HMIS and it's the most accurate than to worry about timeliness and data quality. So who participates? Essentially, all projects, regardless of funding, are required to participate in the quarterly data quality process, so long as the project is active and has at least one client enrolled. So if you have a project that started March 1st, but your first client didn't enroll into the project until April 1st, which is after the data quality time period that we're looking at, you will not have to participate in data quality as there's no client data to pull within the reports. So to get a list of the active projects we currently have in the system, we do have a help desk article that you can refer to see if your project is on that list. There are probably projects on there that are not going to participate in data quality, either due to being services only and they don't enter data into HMIS, or if they're a new project and they just haven't started working with clients yet. Another thing is that if you do see a project on this list that is no longer active at your agency, please submit a project deactivation form. You can find it on our help desk just by searching project deactivation, and it should pop up. But submit that so we can ensure that that project is closed out, and then we can make sure that it doesn't appear on any more list going forward. Any questions about who participates or anything that we talked about previously? So we do have a question. Can a link be put in the chat? I don't believe I can put the link in the chat at this very moment. But I will send out an email with a link to the article with the webinar and the slides included, which also have this article link included in it. So report details. Reports must be generated for one project at a time. The report will be looking at the period from January 1st of 2024 through March 31st of 2024. In the report, the point in time date is set for February 16th. And that's only due to the prompt is asking for the point in time date plus 1 day, which would be the 16th, and it's going to only pull client data from the night of February 15th. One thing to note about the reports must be generated for one project at a time. That's only for submission. So if you're internally, if it makes sense for you to run one data quality report for all of your permanent supportive housing projects just because it's easier to clean the data up that way, that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to submitting the reports to All Chicago for the final submission, those reports need to be individual per project. Okay, we have another question. Is it possible to schedule time to go over housing movement dates out of range? So yes, we haven't gotten to it just yet. It's at the end of the slides here, but there is going to be office hours available. I do recommend people reach out and set time as soon as possible. The later you set time to meet, it might be a little bit schedule challenging to ensure that we're able to meet with everybody. So the sooner you submit those requests to meet, the better. So this quarter's overview, the data quality process will go from June 3rd to June 14th. There will only be one round for submissions, so providers will not need to send in any reports or anything until they're ready for a final submission. The business objects reports, which can only be downloaded by users with access to business objects, will cover missing values, child-only entries, and bid utilization. So if you're running the business objects report, timeliness is not going to be included in that business objects report. Changes in HMIS will not generate in business objects until the following day. So this is really important just because if you're working the correct data and you're getting close to the submission time, you just want to make sure that all of your data is updated in HMIS by June 13th, which is the day before the submission date. Waiting to the submission date to make changes in HMIS is not going to give you the changes that you made in HMIS and business objects that same day. So you'll have to wait until the 15th for that data to be reflected in the reports. And at that point, it'll be outside of the data quality process. The SQL report will be sent out to ATAs and will cover timeliness. That will go out sometime this week. So if you have any questions about timeliness, please reach out. Or if you don't receive a timeliness report for your project, please let us know. Okay, so for the submission process, reports are to be submitted by June 14th, which is the deadline. Files must be renamed using the Chicago DQ underscore project underscore year month date template. So to do that, you'll just need to adjust the dashes and the file name to reflect your project ID, and the year month date you would change to the date that you're running the report or the date that that the report is ran. One thing that's really important is just making sure that the project ID number is 4 digits. So if you have a project or older project that is only 3 digits, you want to make sure that you put a 0 in front of it. So if your project ID number is 123, when you type it into or when you rename the file, you're going to want to make sure you put 0123, and that way it's a 4-digit number. You can ensure that we'll be able to identify the project correctly when you submit it. So when you get ready to send the reports, all reports must be emailed to dataquality@allchicago.org. If you're emailing submission data quality reports to the help desk or anybody individually at All Chicago, it's not going to be counted towards data quality. It must be submitted to dataquality@allchicago.org. The subject line must be data quality report submission attachments, and that's just the way that we have it set up to pick up all of the emails that comes in with these files. One thing that you can do just to ensure that both things are as they should be is that in the data quality article, you can copy and paste the email address as well as the subject line and just paste it into your email. And that way you can make sure that it's set correctly. Agencies with more than one project can attach all of your data quality reports together in one email and no need to send them separately. So previously I said that we can, or that for internal purposes, you can run as many projects as you like in the data quality report for internal purposes, but when it comes to submission, each project needs to have an individual data quality report. With that, you can send all of those data quality reports in one email, and there's no need to send them individually. So if you have 5 projects, you have one email with 5 attachments, and you don't need to send 5 separate emails. So the data quality timeline, just to kind of go over it, May 20th, we sent out a notification just saying that data quality was starting up. Today, June 3rd, is the start of the data quality process and the beginning of the correction period. And that's going to run into June 13th. Again, June 13th is the last day you can make corrections in HMIS. So it's available in reports on June 14th. And June 14th is the submission due date. And final results will be posted the following week. I don't have an exact day when it's going to be posted, but the following week we'll post it and we'll send out an email just letting everybody know it's available on the help desk. Okay, so before we move over to accessing and reviewing the data quality report, are there any questions about any of the slides that we previously covered? Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so we do have a question. Where will we go in HMIS to correct date out of range errors? So if you have a date out of range flag, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an error because it might not be a true error, but it's just a flag that the date is out of range of the data quality report. So that could either mean that the date, the housing moving date is before the project enrollment and not by time, but by day. So if the client enrolled February 1st, but the housing moving date is January 30th or January 31st, 30th, then that would be considered out of range. That would be an error. But if the housing movement date, again, if the client enrolled February 1st, but the housing movement date didn't happen until February 16th, that's going to also show as out of range, but that's valid and it's no reason to make any changes, and it's not reflecting an error. So to make those changes, you will, or to at least see it in HMIS, you'll go to the client profile, interim updates where the housing movement date should be added, and you can see the date that's there and compare it to the client start date. Okay, we have another one. I just pulled a report and every single entry says their housing movement date is out of range. So we can talk, if you submit a help desk ticket, we can meet to talk through why it appears that way. Again, if the housing moving date is prior to the enrollment, that's something that you would want to fix if you're a permanent supportive housing project. If you're not a permanent supportive housing project, then it might just be accurate that there's an existing housing moving date for your project that, or for your client that's just being pulled in, but not causing necessarily an error for your project. So we have one that the report is showing false errors for housing movement date. So if you have an example, just submit a help desk ticket and we can talk through um, any of the concerns. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's run through really quick how to access the data quality report in business objects. So there's two ways that you can do it once you're on the homepage. The easiest way for me, I think, is clicking connect to business objects. The second would be either the report or in reports at the very bottom, or you can get to it by clicking the drop down here on the left hand side, and business objects is at the bottom here. So from your homepage in business objects is going to open up a new tab. You're going to want to click on folders. It should default to public folder, but if not, you'll click on public folders, Chicago Live folder, Chicago COC reports, and under data quality, you're going to choose Chicago DQ -- year month date. If this is a report that you're going to run every day and monitor the changes, it might be beneficial to have this scheduled. So you can do that by right clicking on the report and clicking schedule. So for the report title, I would just leave this as is. There's no need to change it. Once you download the report, it's gonna default to the report title anyway. So there's no need to change this here. For destination, you're gonna want to ensure that it's gonna go to your BI inbox. And for reoccurring, this is where you can set it so that you receive a new report every day. So you can monitor changes that you're making in HMIS. So for running a report, we're going to set this as reoccurring. You can do this two different ways. You can either set it for daily, and this way it'll run every single day. And the end date, you can set it for the end of the data quality period. So the 14th will be the last day that it'll be scheduled to run. Or if you click business hours, you can only choose Monday through Friday, and you can set your business hours, and then you'll have it run for every 23 hours and 59 minutes. So every day is going to run a new report for you within your business hours. And you can also set the end date also for that. Once you have that set, allow retries. I like to select this just because if depending on when you have your report scheduled to run, if it's early in the morning, every once in a while it might fail due to something on the vendor's end. So I like to put at least 2 here for retries. The retry intervals are in seconds, so you're going to want to make sure you put that in. When it comes to the intervals, what I like to do is that if you run a report, see how long it takes to run just as you normally run in it, and let's say it takes 5 minutes to run, then you should set the intervals to any time after 10 minutes. I would say double the time and set it after 10 minutes, just so you don't have 2 reports running before the next one fails. So after you set that, there's nothing else to select, and everything else could just stay as default. Under report features, this is where you're going to make sure that the format of the report is for reports, Microsoft Excel reports. You don't want to choose Microsoft Excel data just because it's not going to show you all of the, it's not going to structure the report in a way that's going to match how we're accepting the reports. So you're going to want to make sure that you have it in Excel reports. The edit provider prompt or edit prompt values, you're going to want to make sure you select the project that you want to run for the reports. This is going to pop up a a prompt window, which is identical to what you'll see if you're running the report in real time. So for my example, I'm just going to choose our permanent supportive housing project. Start date, end date, and the PID date and the effective date doesn't need to be changed. Only thing that needs to be changed is the provider. And you'll click apply. And once you have that set, you can just click schedule. So once you have it scheduled, depending on your frequency or how you're going to receive it, it'll get delivered to your inbox, which will be on your home page and in this box here for BI inbox. If you click it, you'll have all of your scheduled reports. So let's go back to data quality folders, public folder, Chicago Live, COC reports, data quality report. So again, the EDA provider, the entry start date, the end date, the PID date, and the effective date should all be left as is. The only thing that you're going to change is the provider. So I'm going to choose All Chicago Permanent Supportive Housing, and I'm going to run the report. So any moment now, this should generate. It usually doesn't take a long time, but depending on how many clients your project has, it could be it could vary. Okay, so for the sake of time, I have an example of the data quality output for permanent supportive housing. Can everyone see my Excel sheet? Okay, great. So again, this is the way that the report's going to look once you download it. You're going to have your 6 tabs here, which is summary, the details key, the client details, the child only entries, inventory information, and additional information. Again, you have your tables on your summary page. This is going to be the main page for you to find out your error percentages, your utilization rate. And your client details key is where you'll find where all of the questions are located in HMIS. We'll go over the client key in just a second. But for the client details, again, your group ID number is going to be your first column here. When you're looking at utilization for households, this is going to be this household ID number that you're going to be looking at. When you're looking at individual clients for the bed inventory, it's going to be individual client ID numbers. In this report, null values highlighted in red are things that you're going to want to fix or look into HMIS and correct and update. Again, ethnicity is going to always be a straight column of red. There's no need to make any changes or any concerns with that. You have your sub-assessment information, which is your disability, your income, and your non-cash benefits. The way that this works, if a client is enrolled in your project and they haven't been exited yet, you're going to have a dash in these sub-assessment columns at exit, because the client doesn't have an exit date yet. And you'll only see the entry. If a client is exited at the time of data quality, you will see their disability at exit here as well. And at the end, you can see that the new housing movement date column is added, and you have the dates and then nulls. So again, for the housing movement date column, the only thing that you're going to see here are dates that are within the range of the report. So anything else you won't necessarily see here. The next tab would be child only entries. Again, in most cases for child only entries, this is due to the date of birth. So if the date of birth is missing for your client, they're going to show up as a child only entry, as well as on the summaries page as date of birth missing. The inventory tab here, although it's blank in this example, is going to show your project inventory available. So if you have 2 unit inventories, one for singles, one for families, you'll have 2 tables here, or you'll have 2 columns here representing each inventory. And again, utilization is looking at the cumulative total of bids and the cumulative totals of units. And then also, this time frame kind of fits within the housing inventory count updates to utilization or the inventories. So in most cases, your project is going to reflect that inventory if it's changed since then. So let's say February 1st, you updated your project inventory. That's not going to be available for this report, just because the start of that inventory is after this reporting range. So the inventories that we're looking at are the inventories within the reporting range. And this last column here for additional information is just giving you a quick overview of the prompts that you selected and a cumulative total of clients that are being pulled into the report. Okay, sorry to jump off of the report, but were there any questions about the data quality report? Okay, so we do have one. We have a rapid rehousing program. Are we running reports as well? I noticed you are mentioning permanent supportive housing only. Just wanted to know for clarity. Yeah, so if you have a rapid rehousing project, rapid rehousing projects are participating in data quality. So if you have a rapid rehousing project, you should participate in data quality. But rapid rehousing isn't included in utilization. So rapid housing utilization is calculated a little bit differently. It's 1-to-1 with the clients at the time. So that's not being measured in data quality. So if you have a rapid rehousing project and your utilization isn't accurate for the clients that you have, that's not being counted for your project. Only emergency shelters, transitional housing, safe haven, and permanent supportive housing is being looked at for utilization, not rapid rehousing. So we have another question. Our program just started in February. Do we still run it? So if your project started in February and you've enrolled clients prior to March 31st, then you would participate in data quality. If your project started enrolling clients on February 1st, April 1st, then you wouldn't need to participate because there's no clients enrolled in your project. So troubleshooting the report. This is where I think the client detail key is really useful. This can be found again in the data quality report and the details or client details key tab. And essentially this entire table is just referencing where all the individual fields are in HMIS. In most cases, the things that you're going to be updating or making corrections to are going to be within your project enrollment on either the entry assessment or the exit assessment. But in the case of name data quality, social security number data quality, veteran status, those fields are actually located in the client profile. So there's nothing, so if you have errors with those, you will have to correct those in the profile and not within your individual project enrollment. Okay, we have another question. What if the information of a specific client is being flagged as missing, but the information is there? So if the report is showing it as missing, but the information is there, it could be a couple of different reasons depending on the question. So if it's a sub-assessment and you are looking at income and it says that it's missing, but you see that it is an income, the way that that's being calculated is that if you choose yes to the initial sub-assessment question, so the question prior to the sub-assessment that you're looking at, if you select yes to that, then the expectation is that in the sub-assessment you have a yes value. If you don't have that, you'll run into mismatch errors or HUD verification errors. In some cases, it might display as missing. If you have more than one value entered in for any of these on a specific on the exact same day and time. So by default, if you enter something into the entry assessment, it's going to have an effective date. If you go back and you update something, it's going to have the same effective date. So now you have two separate answers to a question with the same effective date, and the system really doesn't know which one is valid. So in those cases, you would need to go in and remove the incorrect value from the history. That's the only way to kind of correct that. But if you have specific examples, just please open up a help desk ticket or request a session to meet, and then we can talk through any concerns you have with missing values or any flags. So resources and user support. We do have two articles on the data quality process, the data quality process overview, and running and interpreting the data quality report. I think running and interpreting the data quality report is beneficial for everybody just to kind of read through once, just because it gives a more detailed explanation on how to run the report, how to schedule, and a little bit more details on individual elements being looked at in the report. Both articles will have a link to the recorded version of the webinar and slides. Some other helpful links would be the sub-assessment and HUD verification article we have. That might assist with any HUD verification or missing values when it comes to the income, disability, non-cash benefit sub-assessments. And then we have an article on documenting the housing moving date as well as relationship to head of household. So with this data quality process, we do understand that there may be a need for further training assistance for users that are new to the process or have forgotten how the report process operates. As such, we are offering assistance through the help desk office hours. So you can submit requests to helpdesk@allchicago.org to get something scheduled. We do ask that all sessions are limited to 30 minutes. Sessions will be done online via Microsoft Teams, so please ensure that Teams is available on your computer prior to the call. You don't want to wait until the time the call starts and realize that Teams isn't working for you. An agency or an ATA or someone with Business Objects Access must be on a call as well. So the reason for this is that when we meet, we can assist with questions that agencies have, but if we pull data or we're running reports on behalf of the agencies to help correct data, we're not going to see the same information that you might see, or it might be showing as errors on your report. So it's always important to have someone with that access on the call, just so we can rerun reports in real time. And then also, please have reports available at the time of the call, or email reports you plan to reference beforehand. This is also important just because it gives us a chance to kind of review what the problem is, and kind of either have a plan of action to correct it once we meet, or it gives us a chance to talk internally about a solution. Okay, so that pretty much is everything that about data quality. We do have a couple of minutes left for questions. So if there's any questions or anything that you want to review or talk through again, just please let me know. Okay, it doesn't look like too many or any questions are coming in just yet. So again, thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to helpdesk@allchicago.org. Have a great rest of your day. I will still be on for the next 2 minutes for anyone that is typing out questions currently. So yes, this session is being recorded and will be available on the help desk by midday tomorrow, more than likely first thing in the morning at the latest. Okay, so we do have one question from Paris, but please just submit a help desk ticket and we can kind of talk through exactly what's going on with your project. And for any questions, please contact helpdesk@allchicago.org. That'll open up a ticket and we'll be able to review the questions that you have, and also, if needed, set time to meet to talk through any concerns. Okay, thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I am going to end it now. Again, any questions, please reach out to helpdesk@allchicago.org, and have a great rest of your day.